sir.
All right. Well, a new report finds tax bills for America's richest families are the highest they've been in 30 years. But the rest of America is paying tax rates close to historical lows. This is according to the Tax Policy Center. And here to weigh on this, of course, Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, I know people filing their tax returns, and they're screaming bloody murder because they've never been so high.
Well, the government makes an economic mistake when it raises taxes just a little bit too high, because people that are able to control their income will defer it or receive the income in other ways, end up earning less and paying the government less. So not only are the government's tax revenues down, but the economic activity generated by that wealth is down because there's less of the wealth. So the government sometimes acts as if it's motivated by social interest, not economic interest, a desire to take from the rich and give to the poor, rather than a desire to add to the government's coffers in a financially prudent way, so that, as JFK used to say, a rising tide lifts all ships. So the present government does not seem to accept the JFK logic, and it would, and Vice President Biden says this all the time, rather take from the rich to give to the poor because they have enough money anyway. They just don't understand the sort of basic economics 101, really, literally 101 level of analysis.
Backfiring.
Right, exactly. Now, we'll talk about the moral argument.
Yeah.
You know, that is an argument that will fall on deaf ears, except to a small group of libertarians today, that unless a financial transaction is voluntary, it's immoral. The government just to take money from an individual and not give the person anything greater in return for that additional money that it took is theft. I mean, who has a higher right to private property, the taxpayer or the tax collector? One would say, well, it's my property and I let the government tax it. Yeah, well, then why does the government get it first?
Yeah, well, we expect so much of the federal government, don't we?
We expect more from the federal government than the founders dreamed, far more from the federal government than the government can afford, infinitely more from the federal government than the Constitution authorizes. But when the government does things, it drives others out of the markets. Governments own hospitals. Government owns roads. It drives out of the marketplace people who could do these things far more efficiently and less costly than government.
But the whole thing
government
backfires.
Owns so many schools.
The whole thing backfires, to your point. The wealthy control their money. They try to get it overseas. They do whatever they got to do, right? The lower income, thanks to the earned income tax credit, barely pay anything. So it's the middle class that shoulders the burden of this.
Well, and you have I know this is the third rail, but I'm going to address it anyway. The increasingly larger and larger percentage of people in America who receive either a salary or a portion of their subsistence from the government. They have a natural interest in big government, in keeping in the government people who will promise them the bigger piece of the pie. What happens when there's no pie to cut up?
They're going to be hungry.
They are going to be hungry.